Book, The New Map. It's the final part of the book. As summer was coming to the Middle East in 2020, a Boeing 787 Dreamliner landed at Israel's Ben Gurion Airport, carrying COVID-19 medical supplies for Palestinians. But it also carried a mysterious message, for its markings were thus never before seen in Israel. That of Etihad, the national airline of Abu Dhabi, the largest of the Emirates that compose the United Arab Emirates. This meant that the almost unthinkable had just happened. A plane from one of the major Arab states of the Persian Gulf had landed in Israel. The mystery was abruptly solved several weeks later with a stunning announcement. Israel and UAE were about to sign a peace treaty and open diplomatic relations. This became known as the Abraham Accords, named for the biblical patriarch of the three great monotheist faiths on the Middle East. The Emirates would be just the third country in the region to normalize relations with Israel, joining Egypt and Jordan. This overturned a decades-long expectation that any opening between Israel and most of the Arab world would have to wait on a resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian issue. This new agreement did address that issue in some degree. The deal forestalled the possibility of Israel's formally annexing part of the West Bank. The peace treaty represented a dramatic redrawing of the political map of the Middle East. On the diplomatic front, there had been nothing then that epochal since President Anwar Sadat of Egypt went to Jerusalem in 1977 and made peace with Israel 2 years later. Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan quickly followed the Emirates. While the Emirates-Israel Treaty has been facilitated by the Trump administration, it had been several years in the making. The way had been paved partly by the warning of relations between Egypt and Israel brought on by offshore natural gas discoveries and the formation of the Eastern Mediterranean Gas Forum, and partly by Israel's export of inexpensive natural gas to Jordan, helping to relieve pressure on that country's finance. What certainly brought the Emirates and Israel together was their common opposition to Iran, its perpetual hostility, and its increasing threat in the Middle East, both directly through the growing might of its missile and drone programs, and indirectly through its militias and allies. For Israel, the issue was existential, as Iran rejected its right to exist. For the Emirates, what they saw was the implementation of a strategy of encirclement by Iran and its proxies. The key date for the new relationship, however, was 2015 and the nuclear deal with Iran, which lifted sanctions and was interpreted as a tilt by Washington towards Tehran. Following that, the two countries stepped up their cooperation, including on intelligence. But Iran was not the only reason for this opening. Israel and the Emirates also converged on their concerns about Turkey's drive to assert its influence and Ottoman vocation across the Middle East, and what appeared to be its alignment with the Muslim Brotherhood. Moreover, the relationship with Israel would open the door for the Emirates to collaboration on high-tech military and cyber defense, that need brought home by the Houthi and Iranian proxy drones attacks on Saudi Arabia. The economic dimension loomed large as well. Opening relations would connect Israel's innovative high-tech startup economy with Abu Dhabi, which is moving in the same direction, and with Dubai already a global financial center. Business took off almost overnight between what the Emirates economic minister called two economic powerhouses. In less than a year, 15 non-stop flights a day were carrying tourists from Israel to Dubai. Deals were flowing, and a proposed investment by an Abu Dhabi sovereign wealth in Israel's offshore gas industry was announced. There was one further factor, the United States itself, better to be aligned and thus prepared for a prospective new democratic administration that would likely resume nuclear negotiations with Iran, which is, in turn, would lead to an easing of sanctions. Ending of Iran's isolation and strengthening its economic and strategic position. An even deeper issue concerned the United States itself, the rise of shale oil. A United States that was energy independent, no longer an importer of oil, could over time become less interested in the Middle East and the security of the region. Better for two of the countries in the region that were among the strongest, both economically and militarily, to build their own security architecture as a bulwark against the day when the US might stand back, or as a prominent Democratic senator proposed, right-size its commitment on the Middle East. In the days just before Joe Biden's inauguration, one more step was taken in the region. Saudi Arabia ended its blockade of Qatar, and Qatar pledged to align itself more closely with the other members of the Gulf Cooperation Council. Saudi airspace opened up to Qatar Airways, which meant that its planes no longer needed to arch over Iran or take off and landing. Saudi Arabia also allowed Israeli jets carrying tourists to Dubai to overfly its territory, perhaps a harbinger of more change to come. But some things were not subject to change. 7 years after the last such battle, a fierce 11-day air war erupted in the spring of 2021 between Hamas and Israel. Hamas, with support from Iran, launched 4,000 rockets on Israel, the majority of which, though not all, were intercepted by Israel's Iron Drone air defense system. Israel responded with airstrikes aimed at knocking out the launching points and the large network of underground tunnels that were Hamas' military stronghold. The conflict, which ended with yet another ceasefire, underscored the persistence of instability in the region. Geophysical maps change very slowly, but political, technical, and economic maps can change quickly, revealing new topographies that present multiple challenges and need to be traversed with care and thought. We are on such terrain today. The drive for net zero carbon in a matter of just a few decades will mean remaking the global economy, and doing so in a remarkably short time. I will require huge investment, bring dislocations, add to financial burdens on governments, and impose heavy costs on some parts of the economy. At the same time, it will create major new economic opportunities, open new frontiers for technology and innovation, and stimulate entrepreneurship and creativity. While it will present new avenues for cooperation, it will also create new risks for conflict. It will create new tensions between developed and developing nations. It will change the balance among nations and reorder the competitive playing field among companies, including some that don't yet exist. There will certainly be surprises and unexpected developments. How the new map unfolds will be central to economies and how people live. The future of the international order and relations among nations in what has become a worry, a not having complete trust to age, of growing great power competition. Of one thing we can be sure, the emergence of climate change as one of the defining features of the new map is opening a new era in the relationship between energy and nations.